Hello, how's everybody doing? This video is going to be on the scientific use of Jehovah, um, using it as in all different kinds of ways. I mean, using it as Jehovah Witnesses, using it as Jehovah, um, sup- meaning God, um, using it and not even knowing why you're using it, just using it. So it's a scientific approach on, like, if say if I had the if I wanted to use his name or use a name for God, I'm gonna I'm touched at that point and how I would do it. But this is a scientific use, the information for the scientific use of Jehovah. Okay. Jehovah. That's how it is in English. Now, first, I'm going to talk about in the beginning, like in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And then I'm going to talk about pronunciation as far as in different languages. And after that, I'm going to go to about a a deaf person, and I want to get into. I'm gonna just speaking about that. Okay, no, I'm gonna wait until I get there. Okay, and then I'll tell you about because I've been studying ASL for over 10 years. I always studied it, like because I'm into linguistics and language, so I studied that. So I'm gonna talk about um, that being a deaf person as far as using that word. Okay. Um, then I'm going to get into, and then I'm going to talk about the dangers because we're talking about God here and the help that we need from Him. Okay. So I'm going to get into as far as making a mistake in using like a name for him. Okay, so when I get to that point, I'm going to talk about um, um, when I had this research program because I study how can you say there's a philosopher, um, what is his name, Descartes. Okay, and I'm very much intrigued by him, and I use a lot of his information in my uh, American yoga or dance style music. His name is Descartes, and he came up with like the coordinates, the XY coordinates, and so I was intrigued, like a lot of Americans are, with squares. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that and how, and then I'm going to tie it in. I'm going to show you how the science of coming up with something that you need to use is very important. And then I'm going to speak about after I speak about that, I'm going to it's going to tie into um, it was like, let me see, we have the my experience because I changed my name. Okay, because my name was Lamont and I changed it to Pierre Deux. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that, and there's another point, but I'm not going to display it. I mean, because I was talking about the danger of using the wrong name. Okay, so anyway, I'll get there when I get there. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was, I'm sorry because it's so soft, but I need that. Thank you. I'm sorry. Um, the first one I want to talk about is what was God's name. I mean, okay, first of all, I have to use it scientifically, and I would actually say, I mean, like, how did God have a name before Genesis 1:1, before he created the earth, okay? And of course, that would be no, because, I mean, we weren't here, we weren't existing, the languages wasn't even existing, okay? Before the earth, I'm saying. So, right there, disputes, I'm not saying disputes, I'm going to say it would be not logical for me to use the term Jehovah, okay? Because it's a name. Now, I want to talk about the importance of this because I was a Jehovah's Witness, and the whole time I was a Jehovah's Witness, there was no way in the world that I knew that I could communicate with God specifically. And a lot of people get things mixed up and they think that everything is automatic. Especially if you're a Jehovah's Witness, you have this feeling that everything is automatic, which is not. I mean, God gave us this earth to live on, but we have a responsibility, and it's just not automatic. Things are not automatic. Like, for instance, I was a Jehovah's Witness does not mean that even if Jehovah's Witnesses are wrong, I'm still going to be able to communicate with God. Now, he can communicate with me because he's God, but I'm talking about myself with things that I wanted to do. Even if I wanted to make it specific, everything is important to us. Like, for instance, I'm going to mention something in school. I wanted to go to a community, I wanted to go to college, okay? Say if I really wanted to go to I did go to a community college, but say if I really wanted to do something in that community college, okay? Which I didn't, but, I really wanted to. Say if I could pray about it, okay? Because I have my own mind. I'm a free spirit. And my parents weren't into academics whatsoever, but I was wanting to do something, okay? If I could communicate that to God, if I could have communicated that to God, my life would have been different, okay? Now, of course, if God wants to communicate with anybody, he can communicate with anybody. But I'm talking about our free will. Think about all the things we want to do, okay? All the things that we pray about. We can even pray about relationships, things that we want. All these things God is really interested in that we don't even realize. But he's interested in all these things. And some things I do, and I go, even like the video or YouTube, and I was thinking like, I would pray sometimes, I can't believe that it's important to him, you know what I mean? The things that I have to do, the things that I want to do, the things that we all want to do. So the first point I just mentioned, that's why I'm telling you that this is an important tape, because there's a lot of people who don't have the connection because they're in a place to where they can't really communicate, okay? It's a one-way communication, and they can't communicate the things that they want to, okay? So that's the number one. Before, like, for instance, in the beginning, who created the heavens? You can't say in the beginning Jehovah created the heavens and the earth, because there was no name there. They're speaking of something that was there before the earth, okay? So that's one point that I would have to make before I made the decision to use the name Jehovah. The second point was pronunciation, okay? This is how faulty, I'm not faulty, but imperfect, just the name is, okay? But it's something that we use here on earth, so it's very earthly, a name. Excuse me. So the second point I wanted to mention was the pronunciation. Pronunciation is used in different it could be anything. I mean, like, if your language doesn't pronounce the J sound, or if your language doesn't pronounce the H sound, you would have to use something other than Jehovah, okay? Like, for instance, in Spanish, it's Jehovah, okay? They don't say Jehovah, but they say Jehovah. And just think about all the languages there is. So his name has to change in all those different languages. So that just shows you the fact that a name is not, another point I'm trying to make is that a name is really a human type of thing, that we use as humans. So to have it as a symbol for something that's so powerful as God, it's really not a good idea. So this tape is really good for Jehovah's Witnesses and those who are interested in going in Jehovah's Witnesses also. So that's another point. And then the next point was a deaf person, okay? Just using the term deaf, okay? Some people say deaf and some people say deaf, okay? I've seen it all the time. But it doesn't change the meaning. But if I strictly said you have to use deaf, and anybody who uses deaf is stupid or something like that, that's not true. But that's another point I'm trying to say, is how flimsy a language is, okay? So as far as that point is concerned, I wanted to make this thing, I wanted to show how sensitive a sticking to a term can be. Okay, now I just said that the use of Jehovah is used and it's pronounced different in all the different languages, in a lot of different languages, okay? So if you can understand this point, like I said, and then I said deaf, and I said death, sometimes I use it the same thing. Okay, but there's a point that has to be made, is that are we speaking of this? What are we speaking of? So if we're speaking, when I say death, and when I say deaf, we know we're relating it to not being able to speak, okay? So that meaning is there, okay? So now let's talk about the different pronunciations of Jehovah, and all the other different pronunciations. What we're talking about, which would be God, okay, is the meaning, okay? So just keep that point in mind, okay? Because then I'm going to go into, and that was the other point that I wanted to say about the dangers, is that I'm also going to talk about, in the dangers, there's a book that I read, a short story that I read in, there was 3 points I wanted to tell you about the danger, and the other one was about the story, a short story I read about this guy who was going from reality to just dreams, and he didn't know whether he was in a dream or in reality. So that was actually the third one I was telling you about, as far as the dangers I was telling you about. But now we're still on someone who can't speak. The one that we just finished was pronunciations, okay? And then I was telling you that, there's different pronunciations of Jehovah, and then, Jehovah, or however they use it. I stopped that point, that one's finished, and now we went to death. Okay, now we have deaf and death. And I said that's a term that can be used for someone who can't speak, Okay. Now, the point I want to make there is that someone who can't speak cannot say Jehovah, or they can't use it in sound. Okay. So, if they can't use it in sound, they're not speaking. Okay. They're speaking about God. Okay. So what I'm saying is that you have a deaf person who is being shown a sign which represents God. So if the sign represents God, okay, the point I'm trying to make now that I finished these points is that how flimsy this name is, this name situation is. Because like I said in the beginning, is like the first point was that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. You can't say there was no language, there was no nothing, there was no people, okay? It was before the earth, okay? So that's a point to show, that number one point to show we can't use a name. The second point was about the different pronunciations, okay? You can pronounce Jehovah in so many different ways in so many different languages. So that's again very flimsy, but we're talking about God. Okay. So now the next point is, and this is kind of complex, but it's scientific. The next one is I came up with. I talked about a deaf person. Okay, and they cannot speak. And the first thing I did, because I played around with this thing, and I said some people say deaf and some people say death. I heard it both ways, but both of them mean the same thing. Okay, so if we're talking about God, God is there, but now we're saying this. No, we're talking about the deaf. A deaf person, okay? A deaf person. The deaf person is there, and this person can be either termed as deaf or deaf, okay? Just a short example. And now we're on the actual someone who cannot speak. And when someone cannot speak, they need ASL. And there's and I just studied it. I studied ASL. So, American Sign Language. And there's terms, and I looked it up, and there's ways to do, you could spell his name out, okay, of course, but you can also use different signs to show that it's God, okay? So, that's showing you how weak and how flimsy a name is to use for something so important. Now, using God's name, it's not a name. It's just something inside of us, okay? Wouldn't it be easier just to get to that point, okay, was to describe and the person finding it within themselves? But yet, if you don't teach that person from the beginning how a description and how we would speak to him, or how you can speak to him without using a name, how beneficial it is and how more exact it is, okay? That person doesn't get lost. Everybody thinks everything is automatic. It's not automatic, okay? When I say everything is automatic, as far as the Jehovah's Witness is concerned, they think that you just say Jehovah and that's it. It's not that easy. It's not that simple. Okay? Say if you're trying to talk to someone, just cut that for now. But what I'm trying to say is there's a point. Now I'm going to go to a point to pretty much stabilize what I'm saying. So now we're going to go to the dangers. Okay. Let's take to something else. The dangers in doing this. The first thing I want to tell you is that scientifically, I wanted to study, I was telling you about Descartes test, and I wanted to study the squares that he had, like on graph paper, okay, and the coordinates and everything, and I wanted to count these squares. So I was counting the squares, and I know that if you do something the right way, it can become a part of you. So I would count the squares, and then all of a sudden I kept counting. Little did I know that you do get what you want, but you have to, it changes you, okay? Because what I'm trying to say, maybe there's no such thing as a square, okay? Like, there's no such thing as Jehovah. There's no such thing as the name Jehovah. Just like there's no such thing as a square, but we utilize the square. But I was counting squares. So I kept counting squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And I kept doing it because I wanted it to be a part of me. But then as I kept counting, I go, wait. Okay, now here we have this thing. And I said, wait. It's not just squares. Okay? The squares have points. So I was like, wow. And then I started counting the points, and I go, wait. There's space in the squares. So do I just count the space? No, that wasn't good enough. So then I went to points, to where I had to draw points on the in the middle of the squares, and then count them. And it was like, well, I'm not counting. I can't count a square. So this is the point I want to say, is that you can't just say what you want to do. You have to figure out if it's the right thing to do, like with the name Jehovah, okay? I explained to you how flimsy a name is, okay? And not just that, but you're teaching other people to use this term that doesn't really work, okay? Because they get the wrong opinion. Some people don't understand what's going on. But why not just show them the meaning of what you want to, of what they should. When I'm saying the meaning, I mean what God means, so that they be able to communicate with Him and not tell them it's just a name, okay? So now the squares, that's all I wanted to tell you about the squares. It's just that it was like a name. A square it's not even a name. A square is a name, but it has a category of things. Square could be a lot of things, okay? And as Jehovah is a name, which is just a name, like I told you, but it's pronounced in so many different ways, which would make it confusing for people to understand that you're talking about a specific, okay? Okay, so now I want to go to this. Okay, the big deal, what I'm talking about is I'm talking about the meaning, and then I'm talking about a name. When I'm trying to throw away a name is not going to work. When you have something that's inside of us all, okay, and you're saying that it's a name, and it really, the only thing it can do is confuse a person, or the person won't be able to use it, okay? So that's another thing in that that Jehovah Witnesses can't find something inside themselves because they're thinking of a name all the time. Now I want to go to this 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 short story that someone, I was taking this class last year. It was a Spanish class, and in the Spanish class, I was reading a short story. I forgot who it was, and about this guy. He was going in and out of in the story. He starts out. It could be a dream, or it could be supposedly a dream. And he went from this dream world, and then he would go into another world to where he was sick, okay? And then he went back into the dream world, and then he went back into this, into the reality, okay? So I saw something in his story. It made me see the actual person. So he could be named one person in that dream, and then he could be named another person in the other dream. But there's still that one person. That's what, this is really, really, really complex. So I hope some people can get it. I don't know if everybody can get it. But what I'm trying to say is that person, okay, it didn't have a name, okay? It didn't have a name. I mean, the person without the names was there that the author created. So you had a person who was in a dream. To me, both of them, they could be, either one could be a dream, and either one could have been a reality. And we were trying to figure out which one is a dream and which one is the reality. But still and yet, does it really matter? And I also had a professor ask me that question in a not psychology, but in a philosophy class. How do you know if you're dreaming or not? Well, does it really make a difference? I mean, now I can see it doesn't make a difference if you're in a dream or if you're in a reality. I mean, as far as this question that he was asking, because now I can see, because you are what matter. So you can go from a dream or reality, but do you know who you are? Knowing who you are is very important, because if you know who you are, you could be in a dream or you could be in a reality, but you still have the item. But if you think reality is so much reality, and you think a dream is so much a dream, that means you're lost. But if you know who you are in a dream, and you know who you are in reality. So knowing yourself is important. But take that concept and say about God, okay? God, who is God, okay? So are we going to call him a name? Can he be a name? But he would just be a name when we talk to him. But when we don't talk to him, who is he? So if he's just a name, which is very flimsy, we can't have appreciation for what he, outside of a name, taking his name out. That means that Jehovah Witnesses can't take his name away and he be there. It's like in that dream and in the reality, okay? Most people, my professor could not, the lady who was teaching me could not catch what I was telling her. I was telling her that he's there, the person is there. The main point is, to me, was that the person was there. The person was there in a reality, and the person was there in the dream. But he only existed you could only see him in the reality, and you could only see him in the dream. But now that I told you this, you can also see the person themselves, okay? So it's just like God, is he just a name? But if you're just saying Jehovah, 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 how flimsy it is, like I said in the beginning, who was he before he created the languages? Who was he before he created the earth? Okay? Do you want to just know him as a name? But who was he before then? And then I was saying how we, as Jehovah Witnesses, they use so many terms for him, and they have to pronounce it this way, and they have to pronounce it that way, and they have to pronounce it this way. But who are you pronouncing? Who are you giving the name to, is what I'm trying to say. Who are they giving the name to? But they'll never find it because they're putting so much interest on the name. Okay, so I went to that, and then I was talking about a deaf person, which can pronounce as deaf and death, because in linguistics, grammar, yes, you can't do it, but I'm talking about in linguistics, I've heard it used both ways, but it's still talking about that same person. Okay, but you can get confused if you're so much into the proper way of saying it is deaf and death. And then you're thrown away. Oh, you can't do that, or you can't say that. Instead of just understanding the person and just going, yes, I know exactly what you mean. Okay. And then the deaf person themselves, okay, when they talk about, when they use sign, they have to put so much interest in the sign because they have to say Jehovah, okay? So what I'm trying to say is it's just nonsense. So now they have to, if you're deaf, you have to worry about using the correct symbol for Jehovah instead of just tearing that down and saying it's just God. And not just God, but God. Okay? But there's this point that is so thin that I hope a lot of people get it, but it's very important. And people use it to, or they're using it to, how can I say, deceive people. Because the point is it's so atomic, I can say. It's so, I can say atomic, I guess, meaning like molecule of information. Now, I'm using my name. My name was Lamont. And now it's Pierre Dur, and I got it changed legally, okay? And I would get upset when people, because to change your name, it's really a big deal. It's first, you just don't change your name. The first thing you have to get people to call you, you have to get people to call you by the new name. If nobody wants to call you by the new name, what's the use of changing your name? So your surrounding people have to call you the new name. Okay? If they don't, then it's useless. You can't go to the next step. So the whole year, in the whole second year, 2 years, I had to tell people that I'm changing my name to Pierre Dur. It took 2 years. And then after that, I had to go before court to do it. Okay? And I'm telling you, I would get upset if people called me by Lamont. Very upset. I mean, you don't know how upset I would get. Just think, do they actually know by using Jehovah, does he really want them to call? Every person that calls him Jehovah, does he really want? Not that he gets upset, not does he not want it. I don't. Maybe he could get upset sometimes, but it could be so many things. Maybe he just doesn't want that. If he doesn't want that, how are you going to know? Okay? And the trick is that they could use it for other things, which is another thing. You could use it to mean something else, which is pretty sad. So you can end up not actually even wanting to talk to who you want to talk to. Okay, so that's another one. So getting back to my name, I didn't want anybody to call me by Lamont. I just wanted Pierre Dur because I'm Pierre Dur now. And it won't work. You can't do it legally unless people surrounding you call you by the new name. So anyway, everybody ended up calling me by my new name. Thank God, and it was something I prayed for. Okay, and not just that, I got it changed, but there was something else. I was Pierre Dur. I'm Pierre Dur, and I was Lamont. Okay, so who is the person without the name? So there's an aspect in it, because sometimes people call me by my new name and they say Pierre, and I still respond, but yet I see, because of the situation I've been through, is that you can see that it's a name that represents you. Okay, it's just a name. It's just a name. Okay, but as far as God is concerned, it would be a big mistake, because this is somebody who you need help from, you know. And if you really need help and you need something, if you're not doing it the right way, how in the world he's not gonna be able to respond. I mean, he's not gonna be able to see what you want, because you have a free will. Okay, so you could be talking about anything else. If you're talking about everything during the day, and you don't even know how to refer to him, it's going to be difficult for you to communicate with him, because you're being shown a way that actually confuses you. So if you understand, the reason why I understand, because I know what happened to me, because I mean, there were so many things that I could have changed my life in actually talking to or communicating with God. So this one was really, 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 I can say intense, because I got scared during it, because I didn't know if I would be able to explain it right, but it came out the right way as far as I ended up this tape. But it's very important, because it's speaking of something atomically, like, for instance, not having a name to confuse people, in order that you can be able to see that God is with you, which is a very big deal. So I hope I gotta put a little sign on this one, because this one was really, really complex, but it was very important. If you understand it, let it sink through, okay? And I hope everybody gets what this point is. But I would listen to it and then just stop and think about it for a little while, okay? Before you don't draw any conclusion, just let it sink in, the information I told you today. So thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again, and Happy New Year. Happy New Year, okay? Have a Happy New Year. We're going into 2024. We can do it. We can do it.